Donald Trump continues down the campaign path, making another stop here in Wisconsin. Joe Biden gives a town hall with Anderson Cooper, and, well, it can be about what you would expect a town hall with Anderson Cooper with Joe Biden to be. AG Barr orders crackdowns on rioters and people who are arrested for rioting, and a Texas school comes under fire for posing a question about Kyle Rittenhouse on a test. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, folks, and welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. We've got some stuff to get to today. It was relatively slow. I was finding it a little bit hard to find stuff to talk about in the news that didn't have to do with these two major campaign events. And I've been noticing that we have some big major things happening over the weekends, and during the week we're seeing a little bit of a lull, especially in midweek lately, which kind of blows my mind a little bit. Maybe Wyatt's idea for a 20-minute morning recap is better than I thought it was going to be. But we will get through what we have here. A lot of stuff on these two events and a little bit of stuff on the riots. But before we get started, head on over to freedomscoop.com. Freedomscoop.com is going to be your one-stop shop for all of your news and commentary needs. We carry great shows such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Generational Gap, which, if you check the link in the description below, if you're over on YouTube, you can find a PayPal, or I'm not a, sorry, not, well, you can find a PayPal too, but that's the one for my personal. You can find a GoFundMe to go and help John stop being homeless. He's been so charitable to everybody else. It would be really, really nice if you tossed him a couple bucks to see if we can help get him out of Robert's house, because we won't want the two of them to kill each other. So go down there and check them out. Pick up their show, check that out as well. That's going to be on later on tonight, and help John get out. We also carry the Freckles and Brit Show, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, and much more. So head on over there, pick up some of our swag, and help us support great creators. All right, let's move on into stocks news, starting with the Dow Jones chart for the day. On the Dow, we went down 130 points after starting low, which we all knew it was going to start low. We saw that on the futures. It started low, it hit just about break even, and then it dropped again. About 130 points was where it finalized out, about a 0.5% down. So we saw it coming. People are getting nervous with the election coming up. The federal government has a recovery timeline that they don't know what it's going to be, how it's going to be. So they don't know what's happening there. Nobody knows, and uncertainty is the enemy of the stock market. Let's see what they have to say, though, on the investor side, starting with Investors Business Daily. Dow Jones Futures market rally against the ropes. Tesla leads tech futures higher, from Ed Carson. Dow Jones Futures edged lower early Friday, while S&P 500 futures and NASDAQ futures rose modestly. The stock market rally suffered significant losses, with the NASDAQ undercutting key support. Apple stock broke through the 50-day line, while Microsoft, PayPal, and FANG stocks, Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, and Google parent Alphabet, suffered notable damage. On the plus side, Adobe, ServiceNow found their 50-day line. Nvidia closed well off lows near its 21-day and well above its 50-day. Tesla fell more than 4%, but it's still up sharply for the week and above key levels. Most of these tech giants rose slightly early Friday, while Tesla popped. Rail operator CSX edged higher Thursday, holding above a recent buy point. Target and Home Depot are still consolidating constructively. The S&P 500 rebounded from its 50-day moving average, but the NASDAQ gapped down below its 50-day line, though it didn't undercut its September 11th low and finished in the upper half of its daily range. Many recent breakouts showed weakness, while some market rally winners, such as Amazon stock, are losing sight of key support. Meanwhile, the TikTok saga continues. Reports late Thursday discussed a revised TikTok deal in which Oracle and Walmart would be significant investors, Along with other investors, a majority stake in TikTok's U.S. arm would be in American hands. However, reports early Friday said the U.S. government on Sunday would bar app downloads of TikTok as well as WeChat, owned by Tencent. But if President Trump okays the Oracle TikTok deal, the ban won't go into effect. Why does President Trump have to okay this? I do understand it's a foreign actor operating in the U.S. I understand that, but I mean, this is free market. Why does he have to okay the deal? Oracle says, TikTok, you need somebody to own you, and I have money. I will give you money and own you, and then you can operate in the U.S. Why do we need presidential approval for that? Here's money. Give me ownership. I want your ownership. Take my money. Why is that difficult? Oracle stock, which had been up overnight, turned lower. Facebook, Snap, and Twitter were slightly higher. And that's one of the things that to look at with Oracle and everything else off of this here. It's one thing that I have been noticing. Now, I don't go on Facebook for pretty much any reason. I'm transmitting to Facebook right now, but I never go and check my comments over there. At some point, I actually probably should open it up and check my comments to see if there's anything on that platform, because I can't see it show up in the live chat, but I don't go on there. I do, unfortunately, use Instagram a lot. Yes, I know. I don't use Zuckerberg technology for Facebook, but I'll use it for Instagram. But one of the things that I've noticed is that over the past few weeks, Instagram has introduced a Reels function. They've introduced a function in which they do, I guess what TikTok does, just a short video to go out and give a message or do a little dance or something. And I've seen a lot of the people dancing there. So the Zuck is getting up there, getting ready to take up the marketplace when TikTok fails, if it does fail. So they're putting other things in place. And of course, we've got the Snapchat thing where they'll give the short video and have the stories and everything else too. So there are alternatives to doing the TikTok thing. I don't understand TikTok. It may be the Gen X in me because I'm right on the line between Gen X and Millennial, but I don't understand TikTok. And I really don't care for the Reels over on Instagram either, to be completely honest. I'd rather sit down and watch something long form, but hey, that's just me. Let's see what the futures have to say. The stock market rally remains under pressure against the ropes, but it hasn't thrown in the towel. But it's got the feel of a boxer who's just managing to stay upright, despite several repeated blows. Apple, Amazon, Adobe, Microsoft, Nvidia, Netflix, ServiceNow, PayPal, and Tesla stocks are on the IBD leaderboard. Microsoft stock, Adobe, and PayPal are on the IBD long-term leaders. Netflix stock, Adobe, Microsoft, PayPal, Nvidia, and Amazon stock are all on the IBD 50. Dow futures fell a fraction versus fair value, while S&P 500 futures advanced 0.15%. NASDAQ 100 futures rose 0.4%. Remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. That's especially true when markets are volatile. So, bunch of things to watch here. The futures are down on the Dow. They're up everywhere else. Everybody else went down. So we will see what happens going up into the election. It's going to be interesting, especially on your retirements, but at least they're back up close to where they were. Let's see what CNN has to say. I don't usually use them as a source off of this, but I did like the analysis that they put into this particular article here. Stocks fall as investors grapple with Fed's recovery timeline, from Anakin Tape. Wall Street struggled on Thursday, torn between improving economic data and a Federal Reserve that said the path to recovery would be very long. Stocks finished in the red, off their lows for the day. All three indices also started the session lower, and only the Dow managed to turn positive, albeit briefly. The index closed down 0.5% or 130 points after falling as many as 384 points at its lowest point. It was the index's first down day in a week. The S&P 500 closed 0.8% lower, and the tech-heavy NASDAQ composite finished down 1.3%. It was the second straight day that investors grappled with the U.S. Central Bank's monetary policy update, which points to a long and hard road to recovery. The Fed committed to lower interest rates for longer and continued asset purchases to help the U.S. economy recover from the pandemic shock. It reiterated that the speed of the economy depended on the path of the virus. A survey of Fed officials showed the group expects rates to remain at or near zero through 2023. In theory, that's good for stocks because it means that companies can borrow at cheaper interest rates, but it also means that the economic recovery will be slower than many may have hoped. Powell also reiterated that there likely needed to be more fiscal stimulus. Spend more money out of the government instead of getting the government out of the way so people can spend the money as they see fit. While the labor market has improved significantly since the spring, it's a long way from maximum employment. Fed Chairman Jerome Powell told reporters on Wednesday, as of the August jobs report, the country was still down more than 11.5 million jobs from February. On Thursday, initial jobless claims decreased 860,000 on a seasonally adjusted basis, still about 4 times as high as before the pandemic. Well, yeah, that's because many places are still under lockdown. Remember, a federal judge just struck down Pennsylvania's lockdown orders. I'd be interested to see what October looks like when we get to that, with this one federal judge striking down lockdown and seeing who else gets it struck down before the month's end and who is able to go back to work. Excuse me. Even though economic data continues to improve, showing that economy fared much better in the current third quarter than in the depressed second quarter, the rebound is expected to fade at a much more rapid rate than expected, said Stephen Risciuto, U.S. chief economist at Mizuho Securities, in a note to clients. And yes, there is still going to be the aspect to all of this that the government is standing in the way of recovery. I don't know if it's to achieve a political end. I don't know if it's to achieve a certain economic end. To look at the situation objectively, it does seem clear. The same with the riots. Vote for Biden, or the riots will never stop. You better vote for Biden if you want your jobs back, or if you want our economy to open back up. Even from an objective sense, that's what it seems like. Just coming out, looking into that and saying, hey, these people are coming in and holding the American economy and the American people hostage at this point. And I don't like the way that looks. That's a horrible look on everything. But yes, we are going to see a slowing down of the economy, the economic recovery. A lot of these businesses are not going to come back, especially when they're in the war-ravaged areas, which are usually highly populated. That's one thing to keep in mind about this when you're looking at the economic impact of these riots. Now, we've seen the societal impact of it. We've seen people arrested and everything, but the economic impact is that a lot of these are happening in the most populous areas of the United States. People don't want to open their business up there. They don't want to get looted. Yes, your Target, your Walmart, your Amazon, they have insurance. But that little diner, that little coffee shop that has its windows boarded up right now, that had its cash register looted, that had its storefront burned, they don't have that kind of insurance. And they're employing just as many people at this point, overall. Obviously, no one little diner is employing just as many people, but overall, these little companies, these little mom and pop places, these little haberdasheries, restaurants, coffee shops, places like that, art studios, bars, consignment shops, little retail places like that, they are employing just as many people as Walmart is right now. So that will be something to watch as we go forward. All right, let's keep going here. Get into the news. Starting off with news from my home state. Maybe I should have started with the Biden stuff, but hey, it's Wisconsin. I might be a little bit biased here. Trump supporters in battleground Wisconsin reveal what issues matter most nearing election. Kenosha riots have voters concerned about ongoing violence, from Angelica Stabile over at Fox News. President Trump made his second visit to Wisconsin in the last month on Thursday for a rally where investigative reporter Lawrence Jones spoke with his supporters about what issues matter most to them. The president won in Wisconsin in 2016 by nearly 1 percentage point, and Jones told Hannity that this election will be just as tight. One supporter said she's voting for Trump due to his integrity and because he does what he says he's going to do. Another voter says she thinks Wisconsin will see unprecedented numbers in favor of Donald Trump, no question. The Black Lives Matter protests were brought up as a concern for some voters, especially the residents and business owners of Kenosha, Wisconsin, who were impacted by the mass destruction during the riots. Jones said reports reveal that Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers' response to the Kenosha riots and ongoing violence will also have an effect on the election. I'm afraid the next place they're going to be going is my hometown, a voter said. Well, yeah, and that's absolutely correct. It's nice to have a little quick hitter from Fox News here because usually they'll have to go through and review everything, but I mean this is the one that's going on right now. I'm afraid that the next place they're going to be going is my hometown. Now, there's a lot of rural land in Wisconsin. And there is just as equal of a chance, especially being a Trump supporter, that this voter is from some little podunk town out there where Black Lives Matter is not going to go. But keep in mind, this is coming from somebody who looks at all this. I never thought that this was going to go to Kenosha. That was part of the reason that when I turned 18 and decided I needed to get away from the small podunk town where I grew up, I chose Kenosha. It was big enough that everything was going to be at access to me, so I could go to like a Walmart if I needed to. If I still went to Walmart or a Target, I could find some nice local coffee shops and restaurants to go to and enjoy. But it still was going to be safe enough that when I lived in Kenosha, even as bad of a neighborhood as I lived in, 3/4 of the time I never locked the door as long as I was home. Because it was Kenosha. I never thought that something like this would hit Kenosha, ever. So yes, that is definitely something that the voter mentioned at the last paragraph of this, should keep in mind going forward. And going to the ballot boxes, that some of this could go to somebody's hometown. It doesn't necessarily have to be a Portland or a Chicago or a New York City. Yes, it's more likely to be in those places because those places are more likely to have a violent run-in with the police. But it doesn't have to be that. It can be anywhere. Anywhere something happens that somebody doesn't like. It can be anywhere. So, that's what we saw for this one here. I've got a couple more on this particular visit. From Fox 6, a local Fox affiliate, President Trump touts jobs at Mosinee, Wisconsin event, from Jason Kelvey. President Trump campaigned in Mosinee, Wisconsin on Thursday, September 17th. On the same day, more than 1 million absentee ballots are to be mailed. The president arrived on Air Force One around 8 p.m., speaking at Central Wisconsin Aviation for a Great American Comeback event. According to this campaign, it was his 5th visit to the Badger State in 2020. The president spoke for roughly 1.5 hours before a packed crowd outside Central Wisconsin Aviation. Hundreds of people were lined up to see the president, some as early as 8 a.m. and others since Wednesday afternoon. Stepping off Air Force One at around 8 p.m., President Trump touted jobs on Thursday. The latest Marquette University Law School poll found that he gets the highest marks for his handling of the economy. Yeah, they're going to keep trying to drive that, well, he destroyed the economy. We said that he was going to destroy the economy, and he destroyed the economy. And the people in Wisconsin that answer to the Marquette Law School poll know that that's bullshit. That's 100% bullshit. He didn't destroy the economy. Local governments and local executives did. The single greatest year in Wisconsin ever had was last year, President Trump said. The second best year that Wisconsin has ever had was the year before. And you're going to have your best year economically next year. The president's trade advisor said President Trump was working the phones and has taken some credit for the Big Ten reversing course and bringing back football. Also mentioned in the president's speech was his Democratic challenger in the November 3rd election, Joe Biden. President Trump ripped Biden for not attending the DNC in Milwaukee in August. He also warned his supporters about Biden winning the White House. On November 3rd, Wisconsin will decide whether we will quickly return to record prosperity or whether we will allow Biden and the Democrats to impose a $4 trillion tax hike, ban American energy, confiscate your guns, which is what they want to do, shut down the economy, destroy the suburbs, President Trump said. Trump also pledged on Thursday night to pump an additional $13 billion to help Wisconsin farmers. Democrats, though, point to the hundreds of dairy farmers who have gone out of business in recent years. Democrats also call Thursday's visit and others like it a super spreader event amid the COVID 19 pandemic. Yeah, I don't think that anybody cares about COVID 19 anymore until they start pumping the numbers back up in the news. So, definitely something to watch for. And, I mean, that's one thing to keep in mind with President Trump, with the fact that he's out here and touting the numbers. I pointed out on Twitter yesterday, Trump is not Hitler. He's not the Messiah. He is a run-of-the-mill C-minus president. That's all that he is. He's a run-of-the-mill guy who got a couple of the things from his agenda done. He got some money back into the hands of the American people. With the powers that everybody gave Barack Obama in Washington, D.C., and Trump having the same powers, he probably could have done a lot more, but he is a run-of-the-mill C-minus president. But he's also a money guy. That's one thing that we knew going into this presidency, is that President Trump is going to be a money guy. He is a money guy. He was going to be like Reagan. He was going to try and get the money back to the people, get the government out of the way and get the money back to the people. So, where he can do it, he's going to throw money at it. And he's going to throw money at the people. That's going to be the big voting push for people is, hey, do you want money? I can get you money. Your own money. Not government money, but I can get you money. Vote for me. And that's exactly what we're going to see out of this visit. All right, I got one on the other side from Associated Press. Trump heats up culture war in appeal to Wisconsin voters. From Zeke Miller. President Trump stepped up his rhetoric on cultural issues, aiming to boost enthusiasm among rural Wisconsin voters as he tries to repeat his path to victory 4 years ago. Making his fifth visit to the pivotal battleground state this year, Trump views success in the state's less populated counties as critical to another term. He held a rally Thursday evening in Mosinee, in central Wisconsin, an area of the state that shifted dramatically towards Republicans in 2016, enabling Trump to overcome even greater deficits in urban and suburban parts of the state. Trump has increasingly used his public appearances to elevate cultural issues important to his generally whiter and older base, as he hinges his campaign on turning out his core supporters rather than focusing on winning over a narrow slice of undecided voters in Mosinee. He called for a statute to ban burning of the American flag in protest. No. People fought and died for the ability of people to do that. This isn't Britain. You don't go to prison for criticizing the royal family. No, that's bad. Yes, it's red meat to his base, but still, wrong. And criticize sports players and leagues for allowing demonstrations against racial inequality. We have enough politics, right? He said, joking that sometimes, I can't watch me. He added in protest of sports, people don't want to see it and the ratings are down. Yeah, no, you're right. People don't want to fucking see it. Earlier Thursday, in a speech at the National Archives to commemorate the Constitution Day, he derided the New York Times 1619 Project, which aimed to recognize the often overlooked consequences of slavery and the contributions of black Americans. That's not what that meant to do. For many years now, radicals have mistaken American silence for weakness, but they're wrong, Trump said. There's no more powerful force than a parent's love for their children, and patriotic moms and dads are going to demand that their children are no longer fed hateful lies about this country. Trump told supporters in Wisconsin, we're launching a new pro-American lesson plan for students called the 1776 Commission. We're going to teach our children the truth about America. Trump's last visit to Wisconsin came on September 1st when he met with law enforcement and toured damage from the protests in Kenosha that turned violent after the police shootings of Jacob Blake. A black man hit 7 times in the back during an attempted arrest. Trump has sought to use the unrest after the August shooting of Blake and the May police killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis to tout a new law and order message and paint an apocalyptic vision of violence if Democrat Joe Biden wins on November 3rd. And unfortunately, as I mentioned yesterday too, that is also a lie. Because it won't be apocalyptic violence. It will be a day or two of riots, followed by all of the National Guard getting called out and quelling the riots in a violent fashion. You think that the Democrat governors of these Democrat cities are going to stand for it when they're not handing the win to somebody who is outside the political establishment? They're not. They're going to come out and they're going to beg Biden to activate the National Guard, and Biden's going to say, whoa, 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 hey, Corn Pop, go over there and do the guard. And somebody's going to get him in his wheelchair and wheel him off there, and Kamala is going to activate the National Guard and come down out of that. So, yeah. Point of contention that I have with Trump on this one here, and this was discussed between myself and Elaine on Twitter yesterday because she misunderstood what I said for the first time. We're launching a new pro-American lesson plan for students called the 1776 Commission. Now, I have been very vocal for a long time about my thoughts on the Department of Education in general and the fact that we even have one at the U.S. level. Now, state levels, local levels, yes, have a Department of Education. You do need to prescribe a certain education to people so they can pass what they would need to survive in the area that you live in. But that should always be a local thing. And I told Elaine right out, I said, I don't care about the America First nationalism in the lesson plan. What I care about is the fact that it's at the federal level. And she kind of accosted me a little bit, like, you couldn't have actually said this. I said, yeah, we need to be mandating freedom. And I said, no, we don't need to be mandating anything, especially coming out of that godforsaken city over in the east, the swampland as they call it. DC doesn't need to be mandating anything on education, not one thing. That is a local issue. We need to get the federal government out of local politics. Now, yes, I like the idea of teaching the 1776 Commission. I like the idea of teaching our American history the way it's traditionally been taught. I really like that. But there's no reason the federal government has to mandate it. Get it back to local levels, get the school boards back in control, and you're going to solve a lot of the problems that we're seeing in education in this country. And some districts are going to fail, and some are going to pass. But all that I've seen, and I've looked at some of the Common Core stuff, all that I've seen out of having a federal Department of Education is dumbing down education to pander to the lowest common denominator. And I'm not all about that. Let the schools compete for each other and for the students. But that's going to go into an entire conversation about districting and choice schools and charter schools. That this is contemporary, and unfortunately I have to go to work today, so I really can't address that one today. So yes, heating up the culture war. Absolutely, the AP is going to go and push on that one. But that's what we see up out of this. Let's flip to the other side of the aisle. From the New York Post. Democratic voters tossed Joe Biden softballs during CNN town hall from Ebony Bowden. Joe Biden was tossed softball questions from mostly all Democratic voters in a 75-minute CNN town hall on Thursday night in the battleground state of Pennsylvania, 2 nights after President Trump was hammered by uncommitted voters in Philadelphia. The septuagenarian candidate was asked, really? You had to put that in there? Both the candidates are septuagenarians. That's another problem we have in our politics, but something that's not going to change for a while. The septuagenarian candidate was asked such questions as how he would keep American workplaces safe during the COVID-19 pandemic, whether he'd benefited from white privilege, and how he would bring the nation together, with a little follow-up from moderator Anderson Cooper. With only 12 days until the first presidential debate, Biden attempted to dodge any questions that were remotely difficult and was confronted with only 3 people who voted for Trump in 2016 appearing to mock one of them for that vote. How you feeling now, Julie? A smirking Biden asked Julie Masser-Bellet when Cooper said she voted for the president 4 years ago. The CEO of her family's potato farm ignored the slight and hammered Biden on the Obama-era clean water rule, which she said placed an extreme burden on farmers, and she pressed him on the fact that the Green New Deal, that this climate plan embraces, did the same. No, it doesn't, Biden said, interrupting Masser-Bellet mid-question. Excuse me, if I could finish, she responded, prompting Biden to apologize. Biden also avoided directly answering another Trump supporter's question on how he would get Americans off federal benefits and back to work amid the pandemic, and entirely dodged one woman who asked him if he supported the Green New Deal being pushed by the left flank of his party. Do you think it's too much? Cooper pressed Biden. No, I don't, the former Veep admitted, before quickly adding, I have my own deal. The unusual drive-in town hall format chosen by CNN was a first for the presidential race and symbolic of the pandemic, which has become the most pressing issue ahead of the November 3rd election. Biden appeared on stage before a parking lot full of cars at the PNC Field in Moosic, Pennsylvania, just a few miles from his hometown of Scranton, with 250 voters sitting next to their vehicles to watch Biden speak. It's good to be home, the 77-year-old said, emphasizing his working-class roots that his family left before he was 10. Biden's warm reception from voters who appeared to have already made up their minds about him, one woman lamenting the fact that her Biden yard sign was engulfed by a sea of Trump flags, stood in stark contrast to the hostile welcome the president received in Philadelphia on Tuesday night. At an ABC town hall moderated by Stephanopoulos, Trump was hammered by undecided voters on his response to the pandemic and his handling of historic racial unrest. I went back and watched that town hall, and I'm sorry, I'm not 100% sure that the voters that went to that town hall were undecided. I'm not making any accusations. I'm not saying yes, they were undecided. I'm not saying they weren't. I'm just not 100% sure that they were entirely undecided yet at this point. So, yeah. And, we see some softball questions. He's sitting here avoiding this. And, say all the bad things about Trump. He's a loudmouth. He signed the Patriot Act. He's given more power to the federal government. He will at least go down into the lion's den and face people that don't like him. And I'm sure that there are a lot of people out there that don't really want Biden to do the same because he'll go off and say a bunch of stupid, weird shit. Let's keep going here from the Daily Wire. Biden repeatedly refuses to call China an opponent when pressed by CNN, from Daily Wire News. Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden repeatedly refused to call China an opponent on Thursday when he was pressed multiple times by CNN anchor Anderson Cooper. Cooper and Biden had the following exchange where Biden repeatedly refused to call China an opponent. Do you view China as an opponent because the president says you've been too cozy with China, too accepting of them in the international community? I'm not the guy. Look, China. We have a larger trade deficit with China than we've ever had with China in our administration. When the World Trade Organization keeps on going on about just ruled that his trade policy violate the World Trade Organ. We sued. We went to the World Trade Organization 16 times. Do you view China as an opponent? I view China as a competitor, a serious competitor. That's why I think we have to strengthen our relationship with our alliances in Asia. I don't know why I read the transcript of that. We could have just listened to it, and we're going to, because off-script Biden is still fun. Let's have a listen.
Do you view China as an opponent? Because the president says you've been too cozy with China, too accepting of them in the international community.
I'm not the guy. Look, China, we now have a larger trade deficit with China than we've ever had with China. And in our administration, when the World Trade Organization he keeps going on about just ruled that his trade policy violated the World Trade Organization. We sued. We went to the World Trade Organization 16 times.
Do you view China as an opponent?
I view China as a competitor, a serious competitor. That's why I think we have to strengthen our relationships and our alliances in Asia.
Yeah, that guy's got it together. 100%. That guy's got it together. All right. Let's keep going off of this one. Live chat back up here. Former acting director of national intelligence Richard Grenell responded by writing on Twitter, China wants Biden to win, so he won't criticize them. This is a scandal. National Counterintelligence and Security Center Director William Evanina said in a statement, last month following about China as it pertains to foreign nations looking to interfere with the U.S. elections this fall. We assess that China prefers that President Trump, whom Beijing sees as unpredictable, does not win re-election. China has been expanding its influence efforts ahead of the November 2020 to shape the policy environments in the United States. Pressure political figures it views as opposed to China's interests and deflect and counter criticism of China. Although China will continue to weigh the risks and benefits of aggressive action, its public rhetoric over the past few months has grown increasingly critical of the current administration's COVID-19 response, closure of China Houston consulate, and actions and other issues. For example, it has harshly criticized the administration's statements and actions on Hong Kong. TikTok, the legal status of the South China Sea, and China's efforts to dominate the 5G market. Beijing recognizes that all of these efforts might affect the presidential race. A week later, National Security Advisor Bob O'Brien warned that China was trying to elect Joe Biden and that China had the most sophisticated global influence programs and strategies and abilities and capabilities in the world. But let's not talk about that collusion, because that could never happen. So, I mean, I don't see him being against China right now. Now, Russia is the big opponent and the big boogeyman of everybody on the Democrat side, but who's to say China isn't going to interfere just the same way that they accuse Russia of doing? I don't know. Let's move on. From the New York Post, Joe Biden said he would mandate mask use on federal property. From Yaron Steinbuch. Joe Biden said during a town hall event that he can't force the public to wear masks in general. Really? Because a month ago you were saying that there was going to be a mandate for 30 days. Pepperidge Farm remembers. But insisted he would make people wear them while on federal property to try and slow the spread of the coronavirus. I cannot mandate people wear masks, the Democrat presidential nominee said at the CNN event Thursday night. I would make sure that I could call every governor in the country into the White House and say, you should be putting mandates out. Do my dirty work for me. And if they don't, I'd call the mayors in their towns and their cities and say, put out the mandates, he said. I can do that on federal property. As president, I will do that. On federal land, I'll have the authority. The former Veep added, if you're on federal land, you must wear a mask. And in a federal building, you must wear a mask. And we could have a fine for them not doing it. On Wednesday, Biden said that while he believed he would have the legal authority as president to implement a nationwide mask mandate, he can't guarantee that to you yet. When asked by a reporter how he would implement a national mask mandate, Biden said, our legal team thinks I can do that based on the degree which there's a crisis in those states and how bad things are for the country. He later added, I would make the case, and I'd make the case why it's necessary. I have the scientists arrayed to lay out and detail why, and come on, man. And I would go to every governor, Republican and Democrat governors, and I'd say, we have to have this national mandate, and we must do it, and Cornball will come out with a switchblade if you don't do it. At the last month's Democratic National Convention, Biden suggested a national mask mandate, but his vice presidential running mate Kamala Harris later said no one would be punished if they violated the mandate, calling it a standard, according to the Washington Times. Then why the hell have it? Why have a legislation that you can't enforce? It's like Obamacare right now, the ACA. Without the tax penalty, there's no way to enforce it. So why have it on the books? So that's what we saw from that. Let's keep going here from Fox News. Biden said if Trump acted sooner on coronavirus, all the people would still be alive. Just look at the data, Biden said. From David Arrow. Joe Biden indicated during a CNN town hall Thursday that the president is responsible for every single coronavirus death. If the president had done his job, man, had done it from the beginning, all the people would still be alive, the Democratic presidential nominee told the audience in Pennsylvania. All the people. I'm not making this up. Just look at the data. Look at the data, man. Oh, we can listen to that one too. This is elder abuse.
If the president had done his job, had done his job from the beginning, all the people would still be alive. All the people, I'm not making this up, just look at the data. Look at the data. And then we're now being told there's going to be I pray to God there's a vaccine tomorrow that could be available to everyone. First of all, once a vaccine is made available, and you know this well, once it's made available, it's going
I'd love to hear what he had to say from that one too, but meanwhile, your vice presidential candidate is saying that she won't take any vaccine that's put out under the Trump administration. She won't touch it. She won't go anywhere near it. And Barr says she'll only do it if Ivanka does it. Critics on social media were quick to jump on Biden for his comments. Yes, he was responsible for their pre-existing conditions, one user wrote. Looking forward to CNN fact-checking this, another replied. His statement was also questioned by other mainstream news organizations. Politico said, and the former vice president vastly overstated what protections could have worked against the virus. Meanwhile, the Washington Post exclaimed, Biden is making this up. Out of WAPO, by the way. There's no data to support this, even if the president had moved rapidly in January to deal with the coronavirus and had been able to persuade the Chinese leadership to be more forthcoming about the situation, the paper reported. Biden's remarks come as Trump and told Bob Woodward in February that the coronavirus was deadly stuff while publicly comparing it to seasonal flu, according to excerpts from some of the interviews that were published by the Washington Post this month. On March 19th, Trump admitted to Woodward that he wanted to always play the virus down. So, yeah, he's responsible for all the deaths, which is why there was not one single death anywhere else in the world. It was only in the United States. I mean, you remember that reporting? You remember the reporting that came out that said that there was never one single death from the coronavirus anywhere else in the world. And it was only the U.S. because it's only Donald Trump that mishandled it, and he's responsible for every single death that's out there. Do you remember that? Because that's totally not what happened. So that was... Oh, we got one more here. From the Blaze, finally. Joe Biden and Anderson Cooper slammed for scrapping social distancing as the cameras pull away. This comes to us from Breck Dumas over at The Blaze. Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden and CNN host Anderson Cooper were criticized on social media Thursday night after viewers noticed that the two threw social distancing out the window as the cameras pulled away after carefully staying far apart during the candidates' town hall. Pundit Steve Krakauer shared footage of the incident, tweeting, Joe Biden and Anderson Cooper are making the point of social distancing during the CNN town hall while on stage. But when they think they've gone to commercial break, they get so close to each other that Biden is whispering in Cooper's ear. I kind of want to see this. Where's my ear? There we go.
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have more questions from our audience for former Vice President Joe Biden. Thanks.
The Blockbuster.
Oh, that is interesting. I like that. Yeah, maybe you shouldn't have done that. I mean, that's normal at any other town hall that you've ever seen in any other election season, but in this one, follow the bouncing ball. Sure enough, the clip shared by Krakauer shows that Cooper signs off for a commercial break. The cameras pull back out, but continue to show Biden approaching Anderson and the host leaning over as Biden appears to whisper in his ear. Neither of them are wearing masks, which is noteworthy since Biden has repeatedly vowed that his administration would impose a federal mask mandate as long as it's legal. The town hall was held in the parking lot, and 35 cars were allowed for the drive-in event. CNN reported that CNN is following all of the local guidelines and restrictions put into place due to the coronavirus pandemic. According to the vice president of its special events team, and everybody's attending and working around the town hall will have their temperatures taken and will answer screening questions. The outlet noted that in Pennsylvania, where the event was held, wearing masks when outside of the home is mandatory. But Twitter users noticed that Biden and Cooper did not appear to be following the rules. Several people called both men frauds and re-upped the common accusation that CNN is fake news. One person tweeted, "They're so phony. It's sad that so many people are blind to it." Another asked, "Can you catch COVID if the cameras aren't rolling?" I like that one. That's cool. Fox News' Pete Hegseth reacted to the footage, describing it as Mask Mandate Joe whispering I'm guessing it's sweet nothings, yep, because I can see the tweet there. Mask Mandate Joe whispering sweet nothings to Anderson Cooper. Just didn't know the cameras were still rolling. Some folks wondered what exactly the two were discussing. Others said the moment reminded them of when CNN reporter Caitlin Collins was caught on camera immediately removing her mask after a White House coronavirus briefing in May. So yes, once again, as long as the cameras aren't looking, it's rules for thee and not for me. But I'm still going to follow the rules as long as the cameras are looking at me, because I got to look good for those cameras. All right. Let's move on into other stuff. From the Daily Wire, AG Barr orders feds to crack down on violent rioters, including pursuing sedition charges. From Ryan Saavedra. Attorney General William Barr reportedly told U.S. federal prosecutors during a conference call last week that they needed to be aggressive in charging the violent rioters terrorizing American cities, adding that prosecutors should consider going after them for plotting to overthrow the U.S. government. The conference call comes just as the U.S. is weeks away from the upcoming November elections, which Barr warned could spark even more violent riots than ones that have already caused billions of dollars in damage. Barr reportedly encouraged prosecutors to consider charges the far-left extremists behind the violence that rarely use sedition law. I'm guessing that's encouraged prosecutors to consider charging the far-left extremists. I think that was a typo right there. The Wall Street Journal reported, in more recent months, police officials say they are alarmed by the presence of armed fringe groups from both sides of the political spectrum. Mr. Barr has blamed much of the violence on leftist extremists, including Antifa, a loose network of groups that people describe themselves as opposing fascism, and which Mr. Barr has described as a movement advocating revolution. In the last week, Mr. Barr urged prosecutors to seek federal charges whenever possible. Two of the people said he listed a number of additional statutes that they could potentially use, including one addressing conspiracies or plots to overthrow the government. Earlier this week, a leaked email from a former top official at the Department of Homeland Security revealed that the department has overwhelming intelligence that the extremist violence in Portland was organized by individuals with an ideology categorized as violent, Antifa, anarchist-inspired. So, and we've read this part of the article already because this was, I think, Thursday of last week that we read this report. But honestly, don't charge the rioters with sedition. Get them for whatever vandalism, arson, or anything else that they rightfully have coming to them. Get them for that 100%. But as far as sedition goes, no. Don't charge them for sedition. Vote every single progressive in Congress out, every single progressive mayor, every single progressive governor. In November, we need to vote every one of them out and perp walk those fuckers for sedition. Because they're the ones that are encouraging this, encouraging the mayors and the governors not to take the federal aid, just to let the cities burn, to prove a point, to show how bad the Trump presidency is. They're going to destroy the country in order to try and oust a duly elected president. Every single one of those politicians needs to be tried for sedition. Hell, the rioters are just following orders. Like I said, get them for their arson and whatever else that they actually have coming to them, but no, reserve that sedition charge for the politicians that are encouraging this. And execute their sentences on live TV. All right, let's keep going here. Speaking of people being charged for this, dad blasts obscene $1 million bail set by judge for sorority member daughter charged with BLM rioting and arson. Catherine Patterson, 20, is charged with arson, riot, and numerous other felony charges. A Franklin and Marshall College Kappa Delta sorority sister is one of 9 people charged with crimes connected to the riots in Lancaster, Pennsylvania last weekend that nobody in the mainstream news talked about because it's no longer politically convenient. The girl's father on Tuesday blasted a judge's decision to set her bail at $1 million as obscene and unconstitutional. Catherine Patterson, 20, faces felony and misdemeanor charges, including arson, vandalism, riot, and disorderly conduct after her arrest early Monday. She was allegedly a participant in the protests over a fatal police shooting of Ricardo Munoz, who, according to body cam footage, chased a police officer with a knife in a threatening manner. Patterson is a Black Lives Matter supporter, posting on Facebook, BLM all day, every day, and commenting, "My left fist to symbolize black power." The girl's father, Chip Patterson of Mercersburg, called the $1 million bail set by the district judge obscene. Everything that I know so far, which is not a lot, indicates that Kat is not guilty of these charges, but then again, we'll have to wait and see, he told the Associated Press. Well, jury of your peers. I cannot tell you how long this night has been, he said. I think regardless of what these people did or didn't do, the bail amount is just outrageous and clearly against the 8th Amendment. The 8th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution prohibits excessive bail. Patterson's defenders say she and her friends, Taylor Enterline, another individual who was arrested by police, were doing nothing more than acting as medics before... Yeah, so was fucking Gage Grosskreutz with a fucking pistol in his hand. Before they were arrested, the social justice advocacy group Lancaster Stands Up characterized the absurdly high bail amounts as a politically motivated attack on the movement for police reform and accountability. No. The politically motivated attack is having Kamala Harris and Act Blue provide the bail for these people. That is the politically motivated attack. Now, yes, possibly for a 20-year-old, there's a possibility that she's a flight risk, but unfortunately, the fact of the matter is that political actors are going to go out and post whatever bail that they put up. So putting that $1 million bail, I mean, this woman is a flight risk. If Act Blue or Kamala Harris or the Biden campaign is going to go and turn them out. She can get turned out and then run as far away as she can and actually not see her day in court. And I'm not saying that they don't have $1 million to post her bail for that. I'm just saying that this $1 million bail is going to make them think twice about just throwing up another $1 million bail and turning somebody loose. So given the time, given what's been happening over the past few months, I don't agree. I'm so torn on this one right now because $1 million is an excessive amount of bail for a 20-year-old college student. But given the situation, given what the Freedom Project and whatever else that they've been doing over on the left has done, I think it's perfectly acceptable at this point as well. So there are two things you got to weigh on this one. All right. And then they have a GoFundMe for it as well. All right, so that's what we have off of that here. I have a video from Speaker Pelosi, The Hill, Speaker Pelosi, speaking of peaceful versus violent protest. We support peaceful demonstrations. We participate in them. These are the essence of our democracy. That does not include looting, starting fires, or rioting. But my Nancy Pelosi impression doesn't do justice to what the woman actually said.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I thank the gentleman for the recognition, but I also thank Mr. Nadler as chairman of the Judiciary Committee for bringing this important statement of our American values to the floor of the House. I thank him and our colleagues from the Senate, Senator Kamala Harris, Tammy Duckworth, and Mazie Hirono, 3 Asian American members of the United States Senate, who were so instrumental in advancing this important, as I said, statement of American values. And yes, it is a good use of time for us in the House of Representatives to state our values, to remove all doubt that people in our country are respected and that we are not using a pandemic to have people. I'll go into that in a moment, but let me just say this. Before the distinguished leader spoke, the gentleman on the other side said, "Where are you when you're talking about violence, this or that?" We're there. We support peaceful demonstrations. We participate in them. They are part of the essence of our democracy. That does not include looting, starting fires, or rioting. They should be prosecuted. That is lawlessness. I'm very proud that Joe Biden has presented the clarity of that, making a distinction.
Yeah, because it's
that
no longer
I
politically
don't
convenient.
think our colleagues quite understand, but the American people do. And a poll released today said that the American people support congressional Democrats over President Trump in terms of dealing with the issue of crime in our country.
All right, that's enough listening to her. By the way, pro tip, you can't breathe iced tea. I know, I just tried to do it on camera, and it doesn't work. So, pro tip on that one. But yes, now it's not politically convenient. These people were encouraging the riots earlier on. Because it's a peaceful protest. It's their right to do so. That's why we have the Freedom Project. So we can bail these people out for getting persecuted, for exercising their First Amendment rights. No, that's bullshit. But now it's not politically convenient. Now it's tanking Biden in the polls, and now it's time to go and crack down on this shit. Yes, that's actually what you're seeing come out of the government right now. All right, next one here. From the Daily Wire. Bail fund promoted by Harris helped alleged child rapist get out of jail. Report from Ryan Saavedra. A bail fund promoted by Democrat vice presidential nominee Senator Kamala Harris reportedly helped an alleged child rapist get out of jail over the summer. Harris solicited donations from her millions of followers on Twitter for the Minnesota Freedom Fund, which has helped numerous allegedly violent criminals post bail. As of Friday morning, the link directed users to a landing page that featured Harris on the campaign trail and asked users to donate to the fund. The Daily Caller News Foundation investigative reporter Andrew Kerr highlighted in a report the case of the alleged child rapist. Timothy Wayne Columbus, 36, faces up to 30 years in prison for allegedly sexually assaulting an 8-year-old girl in 2015. Court records show he was released from a Minneapolis jail in early July on $75,000 bail, according to jail records. One day after his release, Columbus signed a document asking the court to return any refunded bail to the MFF, indicating that the fund played a role in securing his release from jail. A court document obtained by the DCNF shows. Minnesota prosecutors provided graphic details of Columbus's alleged sexual assault of the 8-year-old girl in her mother's home. Records viewed by the DCNF showed. Victim stated Tim laid her on the couch and held her down as he unbuckled his pants and pulled down her pants. Victim stated he then put his thing in me, the statement of probable cause read. Victim stated Tim told her not to tell anyone and continued to penetrate her, the statement added. The DCNF noted that Columbus was already a registered sex offender due to a separate prior incident. The report highlighted other shocking instances where the fund bailed out people accused of serious crimes. The MFF paid $350,000 in cash to get a twice-convicted rapist released from jail who was facing kidnapping and sexual assault charges. MFF helped to bail out a man accused of breaking into a 71-year-old woman's home and violently attacking her. The suspect was charged with burglary and first-degree assault. MFF helped a 33-year-old man get out of jail after he was arrested for allegedly beating and robbing a man who was leaning on a cane. The suspect is accused of kicking and punching the victim while the victim was on the ground. The suspect is alleged to have stomped the victim's head. Harris's promotion of the controversial bail fund comes after she supported making bail more expensive when she was San Francisco's district attorney in 2004. Now, I've got a couple questions about this. First off, we're talking about constitutional rights and the Eighth Amendment back in the couple articles ago. But realistically, you have a right to a speedy trial. This guy was accused and arrested in 2015. Why has he been sitting in the system awaiting trial for 5 years? Why was he not convicted and put in prison? Or why did he not have his time in front of a jury yet at this point? Why is he in the system for this long? Now, if they'd have gone through with their responsibility to give a speedy trial, he would already be in prison. And the Minnesota Freedom Fund wouldn't apply to him. And I'd like to know what the dates are on these other ones too, because I want to know why people are sitting in the system for so long instead of going to prison. Because that's a problem. That is something we need to address. But yes, once again, this is the same thing that we're seeing. That's the same reason that they have the $1 million bail for that sorority girl. Because it'll make the Minnesota Freedom Fund or other organizations like it just think twice about throwing that $1 million up and turning this person out. Because they're doing it in Minnesota right now. For $75,000, they're turning this guy out. So he can possibly go and do it again. Alright. Just got a few more here. And then we'll read the names of everybody who chatted throughout the week. Texas school under fire after one of its teachers lists Kyle Rittenhouse as a choice for Hero of the Modern Age assignment. From The Blaze. From Sarah Taylor. This, I believe, came to me... Who did this in the Discord? Somebody gave me this one in the Discord. Oh. Midget B, but he gave it to me from somebody that wasn't green check verified. And right before I went live, I found somebody who did present this that is green check verified. So, from Sarah Taylor, a Texas school is facing criticism after one of its teacher's assignments listed Kyle Rittenhouse as a hero for the modern age. Rittenhouse, who is being tried as an adult, faces murder charges after he allegedly killed 2 rioters in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and wounded another on August 25th during the ongoing protests. His lawyer, John Pierce, said Rittenhouse acted in self-defense during the riots. You can read more of the background of the case here. According to Newsweek, students at W.T. White High School in Dallas were directed to complete assignments which named Rittenhouse, alongside people such as Cesar Chavez, George Floyd, Mahatma Gandhi, Malcolm X, and Joseph D. Rosenbaum as one of the people Rittenhouse purportedly killed, as subjects of an assignment titled Hero for the Modern Age. Part 1 of the assignment directed students to choose a hero from the list and write a half-page biography about the subject. Part 2 directed the students to write a page-long essay on the individual from the list who best demonstrates their concept of a hero. Needless to say, the assignment caused a ripple of concern throughout the school community. A spokesperson for the Dallas Independent School District told the outlet, "An unapproved assignment posted in the Google Classroom yesterday has been brought to our attention." Understandably, the statement continued, "This caused concern for the impacted students. We apologize." Jesus fucking Christ. Why are you apologizing? Tell these fucking kids to suck it up. They didn't have to choose Rittenhouse. Campus administration immediately removed the unapproved content, and students were not required to complete that assignment. The statement added, "Due to personnel policies, we're not able to comment further. However, the appropriate steps are being followed pending investigation. Racial equity is a top priority in Dallas ISD, and we remain committed to providing a robust teaching environment where all students can learn." No, that's not what you're doing. That's not what you're doing. One little bit. There is no racial aspect to Rittenhouse. There is none. Even if you wanted to bring race into it, he's white. And he killed white people. Where's the problem? Where's the racial inequity? Somebody explain this to me. Jesus Christ, if I talk any more with my hands on this episode, people are going to start thinking I'm Italian here. And honestly, this is what education was supposed to be. People were going to choose Rittenhouse, especially being in Dallas, and people were going to choose Rosenbaum. And they were going to have the debate on why one was the hero and not the other. Debate is what education was supposed to be. sharing of ideas, debating ideas, finding which ideas were best and which ones were worst. That's what education is supposed to be, especially further education. Now, I understand this is a high school, but still, if you can't have the conversation, you can't advance the narrative. You're just taking the facts that the school system injects into your students and regurgitating them to get the A. That's why our education is failing right now. And I don't think Rittenhouse is a hero, not even a little bit. I support him. I know that he's not going to get convicted for murder one because he was dutifully retreating. I support him 100% in that, but he's not a hero. He did what he had to do. Maybe he shouldn't have been there. Maybe it was his right to be there. I mean, he's got the right to peacefully assemble and defend himself, but a hero he is not. The only reason I could possibly justify him as being a hero is the fact that he had the courage to shoot back. Where a lot of the people in places like Portland and Minneapolis were just rolling over for it. Yeah, there's the kick right there, too. Of course, the Blaze is going to put that one up. Alright. That's what we have off this one. From the New York Post, federal judge blocks U.S. Postal Service changes blamed for mail slowdown, from Tamar Lapine. A federal judge on Thursday blocked controversial changes within the U.S. Postal Service that have been blamed for the nationwide mail slowdown ahead of the November election, where a record number of mail-in ballots are predicted. Judge Stanley Bastian in Yakima said he would grant a request for a preliminary injunction sought by 14 states that sued the Trump administration and the USPS. The states have demonstrated the defendants are involved in a politically motivated attack on the efficiency of the Postal Service, Bastian said. They have also demonstrated that this attack on the Postal Service is likely irreparably harm the state's ability to administer the 2020 election. The 14 states, led by Washington, fear that the delays might result in voters not receiving ballots or registration forms in time, as many more people are expected to vote by mail because of the coronavirus pandemic. They asked the court to immediately halt the USPS's so-called leave-behind policy, where trucks have been taking off from facilities on time regardless of whether there's more mail to load. The states also sought to force the agency to treat the election mail as first-class mail. It's government officials, so that mail sorting machines that were removed be replaced for the Postal Service to abide by Postmaster General DeJoy's promise to suspend the recent changes until after the election. A lawyer for the USPS and other defendants, including President Trump and DeJoy, argued in court that the agency is prepared to handle the mass of election mail and that delays from the summer have subsided. Yeah, this was all symbolic. This was all coming up there so they could file the lawsuit and win and say, See? The Trump administration, they're trying to shut down the post office, see? That's all that was. All right, next one here from the Daily Wire. Kamala Harris and 9 other Dems call for investigation into the Durham investigation. They will investigate the investigation of the investigation of the investigation. No, that'll be the next one. No, that's currently what they're doing right now, too. Keep that in mind. The Russia probe is an investigation. The Durham probe is an investigation into the Russia probe, which is an investigation. And now Kamala Harris wants to put a probe into the Durham probe, which is literally an investigation of an investigation of an investigation. This is your tax dollars at work right now. An investigation of an investigation of an investigation. Say that 10 times fast. 10 Senate Democrats, including Democratic Vice Presidential nominee Senator Kamala Harris, has signed a letter written to the Inspector General of the Justice Department calling for an investigation into the investigation of the origins of the FBI's counterintelligence investigation of the Trump campaign. Yes, it's not just me saying that off. Calling for an investigation into the investigation of the origins of the FBI's counterintelligence investigation. An investigation into an investigation into an investigation. The official letter, addressed to Inspector General Michael Horowitz, cites several recent media reports that the Democrat senators say suggest that the Durham investigation is being used for partisan politics. We write to request you that you investigate whether the U.S. Attorney John Durham's investigation complies with the Department of Justice policies, including policies that protect criminal investigations from political influence, wrote the Senate Democrats in the letter to Horowitz. The department's mission is to ensure fair and impartial administration of the Justice for All Americans requires that its prosecutorial decisions be insulated from political influence. To that end, long-standing rules restrain department personnel from publicly commenting on public investigations. Taking actions that may affect an upcoming election, and communicating with the White House about ongoing criminal investigations. The letter cites 3 specific examples, including a report from the Hartford Courant that a former top assistant to Durham recently resigned over concerns of a political influence, and a comment from Attorney General William Barr suggesting that Durham investigation would yield significant developments before the general election in November. These actions suggest that the Durham investigation is being misused for partisan political purposes and undermine the legitimacy of any investigative steps Mr. Durham takes, the letter continued. In addition, it remains unclear what rules and authority permit the public release of a report by U.S. Attorney John Durham, raising additional concerns about legitimacy of his appointment and work. According to the Washington Examiner, the Democrats' letter also cited a comment from the White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, who said that based on documents he's seen, the Durham investigation would prove troublesome for Obama administration officials who are willing to participate in an unlawful act, and I use the word unlawful at best. It broke all kinds of protocols, and at worst, people should go to jail. So yes, I want to know now, honestly, if Steve Scalise is going to open an investigation into Kamala Harris's investigation, and then it will be an investigation into an investigation into an investigation into an investigation. They're not going to find anything on each other, but they're just going to keep spending your money. All right, let's keep going. Just a couple more here. This comes to me from Seawall over in the Discord. Joe Biden's 2016 call with ex-Ukraine President Petro Poroshenko is leaked from Emily Jacobs. A phone call between Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden and former Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko was leaked Tuesday, showing 2 former leaders discussing what then Vice President could and couldn't tell the incoming Trump administration, with Biden telling the foreign leader that he wants to stay deeply engaged in their diplomatic work as a private citizen. The call revealed that by Ukrainian politician Andrei Derkach took place on November 16th of 2016, just a week after then-candidate Donald Trump won the presidential election. During the exchange, the outgoing vice president and then president of the Ukraine discussed the topic of visas, something we've tried to sell the Ukrainian people, Poroshenko said. "Hey Petro, it's Joe, how are you?" the conversation between the two began. "Very well indeed, as usual, when I hear your voice, my dear friend," Poroshenko responded. The call then went dark and picked back up with Poroshenko saying, "And if President Obama can also support us, not only with the means, but with visa-free, that is something we have tried to sell the Ukrainian people, and still hoping that you can come maybe on the 21st of November, on our anniversary of Revolution of Dignity. That would be a very big delivery." The vice president told Poroshenko that he was not able to visit on the date in question before warning that a future visit at a later date was dependent on how the Ukrainian responded to the incoming Trump administration. "With my regard, my coming on the 21st has told you I could never come the 21st. I'm going to try and come immediately after in early December. But here's what I am now. Part of my answer to that depends on what your conversation with our president-elect," he asked the Ukrainian president. The former vice president went on to divulge his view that the Trump campaign did not believe they were going to win the 2016 election, and because of this, their transition team was not up to the job. "One of the things I've been doing is spending. They're not making me. I'm not being critical, but the new administration, the incoming administration, has been very, very slow on getting ready for the transition. Quite frankly, like most of America, they don't think they were going to win this election. So they did not have some fulsome transition team. As a matter of fact, they changed their transition team. Transition is a very delicate and precise dance. It goes from the administration to administration over the last 100 years, and it requires the exchange of classified information and the like, Biden continued, knocking his incoming successors for their handling of the transition. If I heard audio of that from 2016, I would not be nominating Joe Biden, no matter how many states that he won. That guy was in cognitive decline in 2016. You can see it right there in that paragraph. He starts off on one thought, goes off on another thought, loses his first thought. And he can't complete a sentence. Yes, this itself is a lengthy article. I'm going to see if I can find audio of the call because it was leaked. I'm going to see if I can find some audio of that. We'll play that on Monday, and we'll see what the co-host has to say about it. But let's keep going. Two more. Nearly 3 dozen GOP lawmakers signed letter calling on Netflix to be prosecuted, from John Brown. 33 Republican lawmakers added their names to a letter that Jim Jordan sent to Attorney General William Barr on Thursday, urging him to prosecute Netflix for distributing child pornography. In the latest addition to the backlash against Netflix's Cuties movie, which depicts prepubescent girls in sexually provocative situations, Banks and his colleagues condemned the streaming platform and called for them to be prosecuted under 18 U.S.C. 2256, according to the Daily Caller. Thanks to the 33 Republicans who joined me in calling on the DOJ to prosecute Netflix for distributing Cuties, which is child porn, Banks tweeted. No Dems, though. They seem to prefer defending Cuties to criticizing it. I don't get, how can you support this filth? And the picture. As the Daily Wire reported, Banks recently rebuked Netflix as a father, describing the show as movie fodder for pedophiles in a statement to the Daily Caller. As a father of young daughters, I find it sickening. Not only is this movie fodder for pedophiles, it encourages very young girls to defy their parents' wishes and share pornographic images of themselves with strangers. Our culture has come a long way in recent years, recognizing the power of television, movies, and magazines to affect young girls. The lessons taught in the film are not ones I want my daughters learning. The DOJ should be readying charges against Netflix for distribution of child pornography. And then that's the letter that goes along with it. I'm not going to read the letter in full, but I mean, I've not watched the movie. If it's really showing what they're saying that it's showing, then yes, they have a case for this. Is anything going to happen? No. Honestly, I think that's the streaming service is going to get charged in the court of public opinion, and nothing's going to come out of it. But definitely something to keep watching here. I'd be interested to see what comes out of this, especially with all the cheese pie fence store stuff that's going on in the news. This is just perfectly timed for all of that, so we'll see what happens, I guess. Did any of you guys watch the movie? I might. I want to see how bad it is. Usually the news will report what's actually bad. Now, I know that we do get hoaxed on some things every once in a while. I actually thought I was getting hoaxed on Kenosha when I went in there because I got almost all the way to downtown and didn't see any damage yet. But once I got past those train tracks, I knew that it was no hoax. But I guess I can't judge something until I've actually looked at it myself. Alright, last one here comes archived from Business Insider. Spotify is reportedly fighting with employees about hosting episodes of Joe Rogan's podcast that some consider to be transphobic. From Isobel Asher Hamilton. Spotify is facing a heated internal struggle with employees over whether it should host episodes of the Joe Rogan Experience that some staffers described as transphobic, Vice reported. Vice reported that CEO Daniel Ek addressed staff concerns at an all-hands meeting on Wednesday. In the case of Joe Rogan, a total of 10 meetings have been held with various groups and individuals to hear their respective concerns, Ek said, per 3 sources who spoke to Vice on the condition of anonymity. Vice said its sources shared a question that had been submitted for Q&A portions of the meeting. The questions, which shortened the name of the podcast to JRE, suggested that friction is building between Spotify's leadership and its staff over the podcast. Why has Spotify chosen to ignore Spectrum's ERG's guidance about transphobic content on the JRE catalog, one question said, referring to an internal employee representation group? Many LGBTQAI plus ally Spotifyers feel unwelcome and alienated because of leadership's response to the JRE conversations. What is your message to those employees? Another read. Holy shit, I'm not going to be on Spotify for very much longer, am I? Sources told Vice that Spotify staff highlighted one episode in which Rogan interviewed Abigail Schreier about her book, Irreversible Damage, The Transgender Craze Seducing Our Daughters. Joe Rogan and the episode in question have been reviewed extensively, X said in the All Hands. According to the report, the fact that we aren't changing our position doesn't mean we aren't listening. It just means we made a different judgment call. Eck also told employees not to leak to the media if they want to be included in the company conversations about moderation. Vice reported, if we can't have open, confidential debates, we will have to move these discussions to closed doors, he said. And this, I guarantee you, first off, Joe Rogan has the biggest podcast in the world and has millions of downloads a day. Millions, with an M, of downloads every single day of the Joe Rogan Experience. Go ahead, Spotify. I dare you to kick him off. Go ahead. No, to go try it. See what happens. He will go back to YouTube. And everybody's going to follow him there. So you're just taking, if everyone follows him there, they're going to stop listening to podcasts on your platform. I hate to tell you this, but that's going to happen. So yeah, go ahead. Fuck around and find out. But realistically, and I've seen this pointed out in numerous cases at this point, this all came conveniently right after Joe Rogan offered to host a debate 4 hours between Trump and Biden. And Trump is jumped in and agreed, and Biden has not. So now they're trying to shut Rogan up. And I don't think it's going to work. I think Spotify is just going to wind up screwing themselves if they try to do it. So this will definitely be one to watch. All right, and that's it. That's all that I had for the day here. The last thing we do on Friday is thank the people who chatted in the live chat through the week. It was a bit of a slow week. I was starting to wonder if I was suppressed over on DLive for a little bit because up until today, my DLive audience just completely dropped off. I had a lot more Twitch and YouTube than I had in DLive, but I know people get busy too. Just wanted to make sure everybody's okay. I always want to make sure everybody's okay. I actually reached out to Ron personally when he hadn't been around for a while because I wanted to make sure that he didn't get Ruby Ridged. As much as he speaks out against the government, anything's possible. But let's start today. We've got some Sully Blue over here with his howdy sticker. I've got Unsatiable 1776. Says Trump wants a big stimulus. Yeah, we covered that one yesterday. Inflation will destroy us. Yeah, that's something to definitely watch. Miami 1984 is in here. Ron Helton's got the AOC sticker. I've got a 9BAA 2019. That is a new name in here, so welcome on in. Hope you stick around. Hope you come and check out some of the other shows that I host on this channel, as well as the other shows on our network. And I think that is going to be it for the day. Let's see what we had throughout the rest of the week here. On Monday, we had Ron Helton in here with some AOC sticker action again. We had Miami 1984. Wyatt from The Breakdown with Birkenhoff showed up. Seawall was in here with his half track, and Deb Cannabis rounded out our Monday lineup. Tuesday was the busy day. We had Ron Helton, Sully Blue, Miami 1984. Honeybee over on YouTube, that was a new name in here, so hope you'll stick around and check us out for further episodes. Yama Fago, I'm not going to go as no chill as Blonde in the Belly of the Beast used to be when she read his name in Super Chats. I'll give you a hint, she didn't pronounce it in the French way. Spartan 0000 Superior 1 was in here over on the DLive, and Seawall rounded up our Tuesday lineup. Wednesday and Thursday were a little bit slow, but that's okay. I know that life happens for people. On Wednesday, we had Iyama Seawall, woke legend, who came in and decided that he wanted to come and run his mouth and wound up muted on the channel. And once again, I apologize for that. I know that I promised that I would do that as sparingly as possible, but I mean, the guy didn't like the content, and yet he kept complaining about it. So I just helped him to not see it, that's all. And Nimangyu was in here briefly as well towards the end of Wednesday's show. Thursday, we had Unsatiable 1776, Miami 1984, Dankley over on Twitch. That was a new name. Hope you'll stick around with us. And Excuse My Sarcasm over on Twitch as well. Another new name. Hope you'll come and hang out with us some more. So that's going to be it for the day and for the week over on Contemporary. We have no Ed Talk this week because I did one last week. Got some plans for the weekend. And possibly I might start doing those more than every other week. Because you guys seem to really like them. You guys come in, you hang out, you chat. The only problem that I have with doing them every week is the fact that I do lose some of my ability to go to my parents and whatnot over that. So I'm going to weigh some options on that to see what's worth it and what isn't over the next coming few weeks and decide whether we should start doing these every week. Because like I said, you, the audience, really, really seem to enjoy them. And I want to cater to you guys. Because I don't read the chat during Contemporary, so I want you guys to have a sounding board so you guys can share suggestions about the show. Tell me what's important to you and what you want to see more of on the show. I want that to be your time, and I want you to have more of your time. So we'll weigh that. We'll see what happens going forward off of that. Otherwise, join us on Monday for more Contemporary, or on Monday night for the Red and Ed show. It might be a little bit of a slow one, but it's going to be a good one, definitely. Hope to see you on both of those shows. Until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.